Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you've been well. So today we're talking about the 4x4 Colorado Alto Mini. This will be the first in a series of rooftop tent reviews here on the channel. We're calling it what? The 2025 LLOD RTT Showdown, I guess. And this happens to be the first one. Video number one. So in this video, I'm going to obviously be talking about the tent in great detail. I compiled a list essentially, kind of bullet points of things that I would look for when shopping for a rooftop tent and kind of comparing them. So we'll start the video off with essentially a summary of the things that I think people should be looking for in a rooftop tent. But from that list, obviously, that's to help you decide. And when you're deciding on a rooftop tent, not everyone's the same. Some people need a rooftop tent for 1 people, or 2 people, or 3 people, or 4 people, or 5 people, or whatever it may be. Some have different budgets, some have different feature sets, some want more elaborate setups, some want quick and easy. So the rooftop tent for you is going to be very specific to you. But hopefully in this review, you'll get a good idea of whether this one is for you. So yeah, start with a little kind of summary of the important things that I would look for, and then we'll open the tent, obviously, and as I'm kind of walking you through the features, I'll talk about quirks and features, but that's what you can look for. I'll try to put some timestamps down below as well. So I took some notes here for the summary. I'll try to do this in a relatively structured format, but I'm looking for feedback from you guys as well. If there was a feature that I didn't talk about in this video that you really want to know, ask it in the comments down below and I'll try to answer it the best I can. But I will also take that information into future rooftop tent reviews as well and maybe kind of refine at least this summary list, but also what I talk about on the tent. So let's go here. So 4x4 Colorado. If you could have guessed by the name, they are actually located in Colorado. I am located in Colorado, so super convenient for me. They have headquarters here in a showroom. I'm actually gonna wrap this video up and go down there and kind of show you what they got going on. So if you live in Colorado, that's a big bonus because you can go in, touch, feel, actually have it installed there as well if you want. Country of origin for the tent. This will be the same for almost every rooftop tent. A few of them will be different, but it is China, as with most of them. Cost currently, as I'm looking on the website, is $2,799. That is, again, that may change depending on when you're watching this video. Exterior dimensions are 65 inches by 52 inches by 10.5 inches tall. So 65 inches long, 52 inches wide, and 10.5 inches tall. I actually have the tape measure, so I will give you some real world numbers as well as we break into it, but that's what the website says. Weight is 231 pounds. So this is a beefier tent, aluminum construction. It's not a little lightweight guy. Sleeps 2+. I would say 3+, really. It is a queen size mattress in there, equivalent, basically exactly the size of a queen, 60 inches by 81 inches. How troublesome to open and close? This is an important one for a lot of people. This is going to be harder than a wedge tent, or harder. It's not hard, but it's going to take a little longer than just a wedge tent or a pop-up tent. Way easier, way quicker than like a canvas covered tent. I would say setup on this is on the much easier end of the spectrum, being that it's a hard shell tent. It basically pops up and then has one interior part that folds out and you're essentially done. But we'll go a little more into depth there. Roof rack. That's important for some people that want to carry gear on the top. Now, the roof rack on these used to be optional. Now it is a standard feature. So all of these tents come with a roof rack. The roof rack is removable if you don't want to use it. I'll show some more details of the roof rack later. Other accessories, modularity, stuff like that. There is an extrusion system around this tent. So that's how the roof rack attaches. The awning that you see on there is actually attached to the tent itself. And then there's some other little things that you can attach to it as well. So that is kind of nice. And it also does have a whole annex room that you can zip into it as well. So I would say as far as other accessories, modularity, stuff like that, this tent is actually really good in that department. So whether you want to put some max tracks or whatever on the roof, or run the awning and then make a little hoist system so you can take the whole thing off and on, this tent is a good option for that. Overall build quality, this one is pretty good. It's primarily aluminum construction. The material for the canvas tent itself is, I believe, 600D. It is a pretty heavy duty fabric. Again, this is not a lightweight tent, but it is a robust tent. So that's kind of the trade-off. Are you going to go with a lightweight tent that uses lightweight materials and lightweight fabric, or a heavier tent that, you know, is a little more robust? This one certainly errs on the more robust side and thus heavier side as well. Interior storage space when closed. Now, some people are looking for the thinnest tent on the market. Some people don't mind sacrificing a little thickness for interior storage so they can just keep their stuff in there. Interior storage on this one is pretty good. I went camping with it the other day. There's actually a Weekender Lander on my channel. This one, the Mini, can hold pretty safely 2 average size sleeping bags and 2 average size pillows, I would say, in there. And again, I'll get into it. There's kind of a dedicated area in there that's perfect for storing gear. So interior storage when closed, pretty good. Some tents, you get into the really ultra thin kind of, you're trying to get the thinnest and lightest, you're not going to be able to store your stuff in there. So you have to factor in taking your sleeping bags or pillows or whatever and storing them somewhere else rather than in the tent. Again, pros and cons, depending on what you're looking for. Interior dimensions when open. I'll get in there and actually measure specifically in there, but what a lot of people are concerned with is the actual sleeping area. Like I said earlier, this is a 60-inch wide by 81-inch long. It's essentially basically a queen size mattress, and there's pretty good headroom in here. So one of the features, it kind of pops up the hard shell portion to give you a little more interior volume and a little more interior height. So if you're needing to change clothes or shuffle around in there, this tent's pretty good for that. Mattress. So there is an upgradable mattress on this, but by default, it comes with a 2-inch memory foam mattress. My thoughts on that are, it is really comfortable when it's warm. When it's cold, it doesn't turn rock hard like some mattress foam, but it's certainly more firm. So if it's very cold out, it is more firm. So if you have a diesel heater running in there that'll warm things up, or you're using a heated blanket or something, that'll soften that mattress up a little bit in the winter. But I would say when it's warm out, like it's pretty warm right now, the mattress is pretty comfortable and you probably wouldn't need to upgrade it. But it's not the thickest, not the plushest, but it's certainly, I would say, above average in the standard mattress category. Lighting, there is some interior lighting in here. It is a USB, so you will need a little battery bank or a power station or something to plug it in, but there is an LED light strip in there. Also, I guess worth talking about, I didn't even put it on the list, but the fabric is essentially blackout fabric. So with all the windows closed up, in the daylight, it is very dark in there, but all the windows obviously do open, and there is a skylight, so it does let in a pretty good amount of light. There's actually windows all the way around. And then the other thing I had on here, does it have a diesel or AC port? Now that isn't an absolute must because you could run it through the zippers or whatever, but this one does have a dedicated diesel and air conditioner port, which is kind of nice. Sometimes they put them down low. This one's actually up high. Again, there's pros or cons to either of those, but that'll push the air up above, which is kind of nice for some things. Sometimes when they're down low, if you have, clothes or what, you got to just keep that area open because it's pumping in down low. So this one's up high. Again, you need a longer hose to get up there, so you got to factor that in. But that's basically the summary of the tent. So hopefully that kind of gave you, in a relatively quick fashion, what this tent is all about. So yeah, let's get into it a little bit. So the tent is essentially designed, the length again is 65 inches. Now if you think of a short bed Tacoma or short bed Ranger, Colorado or whatever, it's a 60-inch bed. So that's the interior space of the bed is 60 inches. You got a couple inches in the front and you got a couple inches in the tailgate as well. So 65 inches is about exactly the size of basically from the rear glass to the end of the tailgate. So this is a great option for a lower height rack when you don't want much overhang. And then it's a little bit bigger than some of the tents that are designed for that are like 50 inches. Again, those tents are closer to maybe a full-size mattress, whereas this has a queen inside of it. I have it offset back here to where, even though I do have a full height bed rack system, this is the Diamondback cover with the full height up top rack on here now. This setup that I have could accommodate a longer tent, but just worth putting out there that it can fit on a short bed. So let's get kind of a real world measurement here. The roof rack sits up just under an inch off the top. And then we'll say that's about, so I would say the true height with the mounting rails and the roof rack height is about a foot actually. So you're about 12 inches, I would say, you know, guesstimating as best I can. You're about 12 inches probably overall height. Maybe a little bit taller than that, but right around 12 inches. The other dimensions should be pretty true. So we do, yeah, about 50, I would say it's really 52 3/4. And then if you count the struts and the clips, I would say is really about 68 inches. So that's how the specs are usually gonna play out basically with every tent manufacturer, is their specs that they're gonna put out there are going to be the actual tent specs, to not always include the mounting rails and then roof racks. I don't know why, but that's what I found with basically every tent I've ever looked at. So always factor in, you know, a little bit taller, a little bit wider, and a little bit longer, almost always, because things like struts and mounting hardware, stuff like that. So that's the tent. Again, very robust. Like, this tent is solid. I think it'll last for many years. They do have a pretty good warranty. I've never used the warranty, obviously, so I can't speak to it myself. What I do like here about this rack system is that it's super low profile. So it really adds almost no height. So if you're not mounting anything on here, then it doesn't add a whole lot of height. It does have drop-in slots, so you can drop hardware right into it. Has an extrusion on each side. And then some of that is because, again, this tent is so robust. This rack system, if you put something real heavy on it, is kind of relying on the shell and the rack system to do double duty here. So I really like this rack system. It's nice that it is included at no extra cost, but if you don't want to use it, it is nice and removable. Again, extrusions along the top, here, 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 and then there is also a bottom extrusion. So as you can see, this awning is mounted into the extrusion itself. So you could mount the awning separately to the rack, or you could mount it directly onto the extrusion here. These latches are very nice, actually. So there are 4 of them. If you have an earlier model, you'll have only 2 latches, but they found that sometimes when people were overstuffing stuff in here, this wouldn't quite, you know, there'd be a little bit of a gap there and they didn't like it. So if you have an earlier gen, you might have 2 latches. If you have a current gen, you'll have 4 latches. So 2 here and then 2 in the front. Okay, that should be a little better. Ladder is included in this tent and can store inside, which is nice. What you guys can't see here, but I'll try to remember to talk about later, is there is a condensation mat under the mattress as well, which is always nice to have. So this flips up. There's a little ladder cover here that exists. It's a black ladder, which looks beautiful, but can heat up a little bit. So as a precaution, they do have a ladder cover here that can just sit in here, and that's just to protect any damage on this clear window panel here. So similar setup as to most tents. You pull this out, and then you actually use the ladder as leverage to then kind of pull this open like so. Then you will collapse it from the top rung to find your proper height. So this actually can support quite a bit of weight without the ladder, but there's almost never a scenario that you're gonna take the ladder off and be chilling up here for any reason, but you kind of could. I forget exactly how much weight they said it'll support, but just to try it out, I sat on the edge here with no ladder and it seemed fine. Would you wanna do that all the time? Probably not. So then this is actually in a little extrusion slot, so you could remove it all together. And then again, that's a thing. If you're just cognizant on how hot this ladder gets in that window, you probably, I'm not gonna, 4x4 Colorado's not telling you this, but you could probably get away with not using this, but they recommend it. So cover ladder to protect the fabric. But yeah, this slides out of the way here like that. You can kind of roll it up and scrunch it up or whatever if you want to. I forgot to mention this ladder cover does have pouches in it, so it does double as kind of hanging storage as well. When I camped with it, to keep from dangling and without removing it totally, I honestly, it's hard to do one hand here, I just kind of rolled this up and stuffed it in this little gap here, just to kind of keep it out of the way. So that's what I did. Before I forget, there is one thing I really like about this ladder, is that you push these two red, sorry, lighting's bad, buttons up at the bottom, and that's it. You don't have to do it for each individual leg. That will collapse the whole ladder really nice and fast. So then this little bungee, you just pull down, and I just kind of pull it down into this channel. This bungee, you'll see it on a lot of rooftop tents, is really just to help hold the fabric in when you're closing the tent back down. And then this handle is just to help you when you close it, again, to pull that back down. So we'll just kind of put that out of the way for now. So you get in here, and the only other setup really you have to do to get this thing going is there's a little U-bar in here. I'll show you after I pull it out. But all it is you push it out, and then you clamp it. And then you're kind of set up, but the other step you'll want to do pretty much always, if you're using the rain fly, a lot of tents come with removable rain flies. This is one of them. So if you're in a place that it just never, ever, ever rains, you could get rid of it, or not get rid of it, but you could take it off. That would lighten the tent up and maybe make setup a little bit better. I have always just left them on. So you'll have the rain fly here, and then some little rain fly poles. The poles are nice because they are also black. So if you are one of those guys that needs black hardware and black everything, you don't like any of the shininess, which I'm kind of one of those guys, this tent actually is pretty nice in that regard. So for setup, that is typically as far as I'll usually go, because everything else is just more work and takes more time. But we'll set these up as well. These little windows right here do obviously open. I usually, unless it's raining, I'll just roll those up and hold them up there. But they have similarly little springy legs that hold those guys out. Now, when I was talking about the interior space earlier and how this lid pops up, this is the mechanism I'm talking about. So not only does it fold, but the whole thing also lifts. What that helps achieve is a little more interior space, but it also has this interesting benefit as well of adding a window to this back little section for great ventilation. The other little magic trick is, if you didn't want to open the tent all the way like I already did, you can just pop it up and then load or unload your pillow or your sleeping bag right from this back window without fully opening the tent. So that's kind of a nice little hidden feature. Color of the tent is black and kind of a coyote tan, coyote brown. in here. Like I said earlier, that is really all you need to set up. The mattress auto folds. It's not 2 pieces or anything like that, so I didn't do anything additional to the mattress. And like I said, like right now when the temp is relatively warm, I say relatively warm, it's like 40 degrees out here. The mattress is, I mean, it's plush, it's comfortable, it's really soft. I don't know. I probably don't see a reason to upgrade this mattress. But if you do want one of the Inflato mattresses, it's a little thicker and then actually compacts a little more even, and is maybe even a little lighter, then that might be the case. Then that might be an option for you. A lot of good ventilation in here, like I said, windows all around, which isn't necessarily the norm on one of these kind of hard shell fold open tents. So we have the skylight up above like I was talking about there. So if you want a little more light, you can open that up. And it's relatively bright in here, you can see, without even opening the side windows. So these are the side windows that you can prop open for rain awnings. And then you also have this triangle window, which actually opens pretty good for ventilation if you don't want to open the full window like that. There's the diesel heater port at the top that I was talking about. A really nice storage kind of panel back there, and a lot of good storage pockets all around, honestly. So there's some more storage pockets over here. This is the LED light strip along the back with the USB plug over there. This has a little clear pocket that you can, you know, put an iPad in and watch movies or whatever on. This is removable. There is a fabric. Again, nice and soft, probably helps a little bit with condensation over there as well on the hard portion of the tent. And this little bungee, if you see it running across, is essentially another thing that just helps the fabric stay in when you're closing the tent. So you'll take that off and then put it on when you're ready. And then this window back here, which I showed from the other side, does have your bug mesh, or you can fully close it as well to, again, black it out in here. This is essentially the storage area of the tent. So this is a relatively standard size pillow. It's a little smaller than a standard size pillow, but it's one of these like contour memory foam pillows. But you can see when pushed back, that has quite a bit of room. You can really store stuff to about here. So this whole back area is storage, and then you can see this is a sleeping bag. Again, a relatively standard size sleeping bag. In the bag, it is, you know, it compresses a little bit here, but that'll give you a general idea of what you can store in here. It does also come with a little kind of boot bag, storage bag, which hangs off the side. So if you want to store your boots and junk outside, it comes with that as well. If you can see, this is the rain awning side. This little triangle is currently blacked out, but this does also open up if you want to let a little more light and air through. But obviously, if you want the full effects of the rain fly, if it's raining, that can be closed down as well. But opening up does allow some light and air to pass through a little better. Let me grab the tape measure and I can show you some real world numbers in here. All right, so like I said earlier, 60 inches wide. Now, it is a little wider on that upper portion than this lower portion here. You can see there's a hinge mechanism and it tapers a little bit. So full 60 inches up there, drops down to about 56 inches on this lower part over here. All right, and then let's see how best to kind of show some of this. Again, with this thing popped up here, the lowest portion of the tent will really be back here. From the edge of the mattress straight up is about 20 inches tall. You can see here, I'm almost able to go full height on my knees. We have, we'll say, actually 48 inches to the peak from the top of the mattress to the peak here. So that'll be your tallest point. And then over on this end, which is the opening door of the tent, we're at about 31 inches of height. So that'll give you an idea of what's going on in here. So when I was talking earlier, having this height, maybe some people don't think about or care about, but if you're like, you know, putting on pants or you're just moving around or you want to stretch out or whatever, it is nice kind of maximizing your height and your usable area in here. So that's pretty nice. You can sleep head that way if you want, and then that way you could kind of watch movies on the iPad or whatever. So that's probably the only reason I'd ever want to do that. Typically, I would say most people probably sitting with their heads on that side and their feet to the door opening. There's a lot to like in this tent. What you may be hearing right now is the one thing that I think they could probably improve. It'd be pretty easy for you to do it as well with just some paracord or something on these zippers, is they just have the standard zippers here. So they are very nice zippers. They go up and down really, like they don't catch. So one thing about rooftop tents is not all zippers are made easy. You can see I'm just able to do this all day and it's not catching. A lot of times with tents, the zippers won't be that great and you really need to two-hand it and kind of work it up around the corners, or they won't be as rounded here. It'll be kind of like a sharper bend and you'll get caught up, and that should not be ignored. That's a little bit of extra pain that you have to deal with. So zippers are great in function, but if you can hear, when the wind is really kicking, they do make a little bit of noise. So if you tie a little bit of paracord to these, that would silence it, or you can wrap it with some heat shrink, stuff like that. There's several options you can do for it. But I would say that's honestly the only nit I have in here is the slightly rattly zippers. Again, it's not deafening or anything, and maybe it's a minor nit, but one certainly worth mentioning. Again, ventilation in here is great. If you want to close down all the windows, then it gets very dark, and that is a plus. The standard mattress, pretty stinking good, I would say. So really, that's the interior of the tent, and it's a nice place to sleep. All right, so while we are open, I've never actually set this up, so this will be a little bit of trial and error, and will certainly take a bit of time. This is the Annex Room. So this tent does have a zip-in annex that drops down, I'll obviously show you here in a second, and creates a little enclosed room here if you wanted a changing area or a place to put your dogs. Maybe you have a little cot and you want to sleep a couple extras. I never use them. Some people do. Some people swear by them. So just because I never use them doesn't mean they suck or anything like that at all. It just means that I'm too lazy. But this tent does have it, and I will set it up for you. Again, never set it up, but I do have a pretty decent idea. Now, it's not tiny, so you got to account for this duffel bag of stuff, a little bit of extra heft, and the setup time. So if you're just doing a quick overnighter, there's no real point to do it, I think. And this setup, as well as on the 270 awning, I'll talk about the 270 awning briefly, but it's not a review of the awning, obviously. The awning is huge, and the awning also has its own room that you can open up and make a massive, massive enclosed space. That, realistically is a two-person job, takes a while, and it's a big pain, and I don't want to do it because I actually have mud around me, and I'm bringing this tent back to them. So I don't want to bring them a big muddy room or anything like that. But if you need a massive enclosed space, you can have the annex, and it doesn't necessarily pair with the awning room, but the awning room will come to about here since it's a 270, and it does basically butt up to the annex room over here. So essentially that means you could have a covered space that comes out, about 6 feet or so, that goes all the way around here, all the way around here. And we did set that up in their showroom, and it was honestly epic and insane. It's just a lot of work. I talked about how that might be a great option if you had this set up on a little, a mini travel trailer or whatever, and you just park the trailer at your camp spot and you're gonna be there for a few days or a week or whatever, and it's not tied to your vehicle. So you take your vehicle and you go do whatever, and then you come back and you have this big, huge enclosure setup. Could I set that up on my truck? Yes. Would I ever? Probably not. But it's definitely an option, and again, kind of pairs with the whole ecosystem, so it's worth talking about. All right, so again, this does have a floor that you can zip in, but I'm gonna set it up without the floor. It has these two keter strips here, essentially, that you'll slide that in. You will need to pull the ladder up. Then I'm not gonna attach it because it doesn't really need it for my setup, but you zip the back in, and then you'll pull this over, just doing this one-handed here. And then again, this little strip will go into this little channel. All right, so you'll get that in, and then you'll have this bigger portion out front here, and this will then zip into your rain fly. So then you'll have it essentially connected and then need to stake it out. All right, so I did some rudimentary staking. Ground's too muddy, wind is too great, but we got a little break in wind here, so I'll try and show you real quick. There are doors on all three sides, and then, so this opens up into the tent there and gives you a nice big area. Again, not quite properly staked out. These doors do have mesh as well. So if you wanna open the door fully, but still, then you can open it up and just have the mesh like so. So door there, door there, door there. You could basically have this thing all opened up and meshed in, but you do need poles, which I don't fully have in right, and you do need to stake it out. And if you do have wind, then those are all factors to consider. Basically, if you need to put a stake in the ground, I ain't gonna set it up. But like I said earlier, a lot of people do, and so it's definitely an option for you. This back panel also, if you need to access something on this side, this is the vehicle right here. So there's the truck, if you can see it. This does open up as well. So if you got something there, like I got my Pelican case here, that does open up so you can still access it as well. Again, floor does go in there, but as you can see, wind is whipping around a little bit, and I don't have this thing staked out all that great. But plenty of headroom in here, as you can see. And, you know, honestly, once it's set up, if you set it up properly and stake it out and run lines out and everything, is one extra nice enclosed space that's a nice feature. So if this is something you're looking for, this tent can do it. And then again, here's how that kind of looks from the outside. So it'll come, you know, out from the tent and then get a little wider. You can see my poles are a little cockeyed in there, and then get a little wider. So the floor width there, and judging by my eyeballs, looks to be about 8 feet wide by another, again, it depends on how you stake it out, 6, 7 feet out this way. So you could throw like a cot or something in there, some dog beds, or again, your little toilet or whatever you might want. Some people I've seen also run a little heater in this area, or you could, you know, be careful with carbon monoxide and whatnot, propane fire pit or something, and then that heat does all rise into the tent. So you can heat this area, and the heat will eventually end up in your tent up there as well. Okay, so honestly, after getting the hang of that thing and kind of understanding the setup, I bet you could get setup time to close to 5 minutes. Realistically, it doesn't seem that bad. Wind is definitely coming in. Apologies if you hear that too much on the mic. Storm clouds are rolling in. It's gonna start snowing here in the next hour, I'm guessing. So let's get this thing packed up. Oh, so I brought my wife over to look at the room and she loved it. She's like, oh, this is great. So depending on who you are, you may absolutely love it. So let's put this tent away. This and really any tent, you're gonna wanna keep a couple of the windows inside opened up or zipped down a little bit so that the air as you're closing this tent can escape. So I left a couple of the windows inside here cracked. Taking the little rain fly poles off, putting them back in the bag. And then you need to collapse this little U-bar inside. And then this is the kind of, I haven't quite figured out the best way to do this. You kind of want this available to pull the lid down when you're closing it up. But I think it'll kind of get lost in the ladder. Again, this ladder part I like. So this handle you'll kind of need for later. So I kind of throw it on the side over there. The ladder you use to push this part of the platform back up in there. And then like I said earlier, the nice part about this ladder is these two red buttons. And then you just go all the way back in. For me, I'll hop up on this. Push it in the rest of the way. Use the ladder cover. Pull the handle out. Actually forgot about that little elastic cord for the closure, but you don't really need it. And then you just pull it, start pulling it closed. And there's a nice little handle here. So you can throw that in. And then from this part, once you get it starting to close, you just kind of tuck your fabric in. Make sure everything's tucked in nicely. You just go around, close all the latches. And you'll be good to go. That is the 4x4 Colorado Alto Mini. I think I mentioned it earlier, but they do have one called the Elite, which is essentially kind of the king size version of this. So yeah, hope you liked it. If you have one, let me know how you've been liking it down below, or if you've been shopping for one. Let me know if this video was helpful for you. Thanks to the guys at 4x4 Colorado for providing the tent. And now, yeah, we'll quickly head over to their HQ and finish up the video. Okay, so here we are actually at the 4x4 Colorado HQ. They got this cool giant mural. They're actually in an area of town where there's kind of a lot of buildings out here with murals. They're maybe gonna do something in this area where they're gonna do kinda, I don't know if it'll happen. I don't even know if I'm supposed to talk about it, but I will anyway, because it's a cool idea, where they're gonna have like a drive-in, like Riggs drive-in movie theater over here to where, you know, you can bring your rigs and pop your tents and whatever, and maybe they'll have a center courtyard area. That, I don't know, it may happen. They've been talking about it. This is their giant trailer. They go to a lot of shows and whatnot. So if you see that, then you know they are there. This is their cool tow pig as well. And then they basically have a shop where they work on vehicles. I mean, they do everything, bumpers and suspension and all that, but also install rooftop tents. And then here is their little showroom. Actually, don't know if anyone's in here. We'll see. Hope I'm not interrupting anything. Hey, how's it going? Good. Hey, look at that. Look who. it's me on the projector. Anyway, but this is their showroom. But the FJ set up with some tents. They got their own diesel heaters down here, a bunch of various accessories, awning rooms set up, and you can come and check out all of their tents. Again, since they do have the shop over there, they do sell some other stuff. So they got a bunch of different things essentially on display, but also it's a great time to come in, check out the mattresses, and then you can hang out here while your vehicle's getting some work done. Got some merch, all kinds of cool stuff. Some RC cars, some heaters, some fuel storage. So if you want to come in and check some stuff out, you absolutely can. And then, yeah, maybe I'll be up on the screen. This is also the same area where they warehouse the tents. So tents are stored and shipped from this facility as well. And then it kind of goes all back up in there. So then in here is where they're doing some of the actual installs, a few lifts. Actually, I think they just got their alignment rack set up in the back. So working on everything. Lexus, Toyotas, Jeeps in here right now. So kind of a full install modification shop. And then also tent installs, obviously. So yeah, if you're in the Denver area, then it's definitely a place that's worth checking out.